Hello, dear Professor Milagros. My name is Jorge Perez, and welcome to this last task, classification of world Englishes. My variety is Indian English. First of all, I would like to introduce to you the contents of the presentation. I will be talking about the general objectives, the generalities of the Indian English, the classification of this variety according to Cacrus and Mears model, also the English Indian features compared to the general American standard, then the implications of this Indian English, and finally the references that I used during my video. First of all, the general objective of this presentation is to present the general characteristics of the Indian English as a variety of English. The specific objectives are to describe the generalities of the Indian English, to classify the Indian English according to Cacrus and Mears model, to compare Indian English morphological, syntactical, and phonological features to General American Standard Model, to discuss implication of English in India, and finally to introduce some samples of Indian English corpora. So here we go. The generalities of this language uh, is because the name is Indian English, and this is the second most known variety of English in Asia after China. The location of this country, of course, is Asia, and it has one of the greatest population, one of the most populous country in Asia. New Delhi is the capital of this country. The number of speakers has a variation. If we talk about the most spoken language in India, of course, is their language, which is Hindi, as we can see in this picture. But the second most spoken language is the Indian English. Okay, so around 256,000 people speak this language. The origins can be divided into two different parts. Okay, the first part are the social and economical implications, and the second part has to do with the religious implications. In the social economical part, we can see that the British people came to India in 16,000, and they wanted to seek opportunities for business because they thought that India was a wealthy country. So they started gaining control over different regions through alliances, battles, and threats. The other part is the religious part, and it was through Christianity that English came to India, because the first people who wanted to share the gospel in India, they did it through the English language. So that was the origin, or the main origin of this language in India. When we talk about the classification of this Indian English, we can see two basic models. The first model was introduced by Cacrus in 1985. He classified the English of the world, or the Englishes of the world, in three main circles: the inner circle, the outer circle, and the expanding circle. The Indian English is specifically located in the outer circle. When we talk about the inner circle, we mainly talk about those countries where English is spoken as a mother tongue. The outer circle means those countries where English is spoken without having to displace the indigenous languages that already existed in those peoples. And finally, the expanded circle is where English is being used as a kind of lingua franca for business and administration. Another model that was later introduced is that of Mayers, that was introduced in 2013. May classified in turn the world Englishes into a wider system. He subdivided the system into standard and non-standard. So we can see here that the Indian English is categorized into the super central varieties of English. Now, into the super central varieties, there is a classification, the standard and the non-standard. So Indian English is classified into the standard, super central standard variety. Okay, There are some remarkable features that we have about Indian English, and I want to compare those features to General American Standard Model. The first thing that I would like to talk about is the lexical features that we are talking about vocabulary. And in vocabulary, we have like four or five main things. We have the borrowing from Indian languages. One example of this is the word ghost, that means red meat. Another characteristics that we have are novel construction through processes of affixation and compounding. We have a word, for example, kitty party, and that means a social lunch at which those attending contribute money to a central pool or draw lots, the winner receiving the money and hosting the next lunch. We have hybrid construction, for example, the word ashramite, that means an occupant of an ashram. And we have loan translational codes that are idioms and expressions that are typically translations from other languages. And we have different meanings that mean some examples of words that are the same word but they have different meanings. One meaning for the American English and another meaning for the Indian English. I would like to introduce to you some examples of these different meanings. We can see here examples of a comparison between General American Standard Model and the Indian English. I'm going to give you three main examples. Uh, in Indian English, we say cycle, but in American English, we say bicycle. In Indian English, they say picture, but that means in American English, movie. Okay? And we say, in Indian English, we say chemist, but in American English, we say pharmacy. So these are like some examples about vocabulary. We also have some features about form or morphological features. In this case, one of the things that they do is that they add the particle of to give some emphasis or to add negative meaning. For example, when we say the phrase, let's finish it off, what they really mean in American English is, let's finish it and be done with it. So that's a main characteristic about the form of the language. Also, we have syntactical features. It means about the order of the elements of a sentence. The main characteristic is called fronting. What does fronting mean? Fronting is the characteristic in which Indian English changes the words, the order of the words in a sentence. So normally in American English, we would say, we can have a meeting tomorrow. But Indian people, when they talk in English, they say, tomorrow we can have a meeting. So they change the position of the adverb. We also have phonological features that talked about the sound and pronunciation. And in this case, we have the Rothic accent. The Rothic accent consists of an exaggeration of the word or the letter R. So they kind of exaggerate that word. So we have a phrase over here. Anybody will, if they look through the history, that India has 16 major languages. This is the phonological transcription in American language that would be like that. But if we try to pronounce that phrase in Indian English, that would be something like, anybody will, if they look through the history, that India has 16 major languages, because the R is Rothic, so they kind of exaggerate that R. Okay? There are also some other implications, like social implications. In this case, English has allowed India to become a better known country. India is now well known for being one of the countries that most produces literature for the whole world, as we can see in this picture. The political implications of India, in this case of the English, of the Indian English, is that India has become one of the most influential countries of Asia due to its democracy, and its democracy is based upon relationships, international relationships, whose lingua franca is English. So this is a political implication for this variety of language in this country. And one of the most important implications is the cultural implications, because in this case, as India has become the second most important English variety of Asia after Chinese English, okay, they have settled like a community in the United States. So we can find some part of the United States where Indian people live, and they share this commonality of his own variety of English. Now, I would like to share with you this phrase mentioned or stated by an Indian writer called Vaika Shorb. He said Indian writers have appropriated English as an Indian language, and that gives a certain freshness to the way they write. Now, I would like you to hear or to listen to a short part of an Indian boy talking in this variety of English. So let's listen to it. I would like you to enjoy this part.
Hello, my name is Anbu and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to, introduce the Indian accent to you. I am very well aware that there is a big variety of Indian accents, and not just Indian. There is Sri Lankan, Pakistani, and all over South Asia there is different accent. But I wanted to introduce to you the South Indian accent.
Okay, so we basically could hear from him talking in his Indian English accent. Okay, so it's quite important to notice the Rothic accent that he's trying to do because he's from that place, he's from India. And finally, we have the references. We have used the International Dialects of English Archive. We have used the documents, the academic documents from Cacru and Mayer for their models, and some other references like Mind and the Oxford English Dictionary. So I hope you like this class, teacher, and thank you very much for your time. Bye bye. Thank you.